Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another edition, our third edition of Virtual Trojan Talk, brought to you by Santa Fe Cattle Company, Highway 231 in Troy, where steaks, ribs, and fajitas are still served up real fresh and fun, and by Mama Goldberg's on the square in Troy for specialty sandwiches and Mama's famous nachos. I'm Barry McKnight, and on this, our third edition of our virtual Trojan Talk, we're joined by Troy men's basketball coach Scott Cross, volleyball coach Josh Lauer, men's tennis coach Rolando Vargas is in, as is assistant athletic director for student athlete services Becky Whetstone. People, if you want to lob a question in, you go to the bottom of our screen, our Zoom screen. There's a feature called Chat, and you can get in. We are monitoring our Zoom group chat, and if you have a question for any one of these coaches or staff, feel free to chat those in, and we will give you a chance to get those questions asked. This is what this format is for. Let's start off, first of all, alphabetically. Let's start men's basketball coach Scott Cross. Coach, how are things these days?
Oh, it's going pretty good. We've just been chugging along, making sure our guys are staying on top of their academics. They're finishing up the semester here over the next day or so, and they've been working really, really hard. Obviously, they're trying to find a way to stay busy athletically because most of the gyms are shut down. So unless they have a goal out back, there's not a whole lot that they can do. Some of them are trying to do push-ups and sit-ups and air squats and those types of things on their own to stay in shape the best they can. But that's pretty much what we do. I spend a lot of time Zoom FaceTiming with the guys and just interacting with them one-on-one, sometimes with a group of two or three, but that's pretty much what my days consist of right now.
Well, it occurs to me as we turn it to volleyball coach Josh Lauer, your schedule seems like it would be a little bit different. Volleyball's a fall sport, and you guys I'm interested in how you're spending your time, knowing that, right now it's scheduled to go in the fall. You've got a different timeline to this point. Am I right?
Yeah, for sure. We were in the middle of our spring training. We had just, we were really fortuitous. This year, we decided to start our spring training a little bit earlier. And so we actually got a play date in at the end of February. Very fortunately, because we were planning on ending a little bit early this year, so that our players had a little bit more time before finals and things like that. And Easter was a little bit, the way Easter fell. So, we were fortunate enough, unlike some other programs in the country, we actually got a couple spring scrimmages. But it's definitely weird not seeing your team for, almost 3 months. We haven't seen them since March 5th, but, we've been trying to, especially these last couple weeks, it's similar to what we would normally do. In our time right now, we would kind of be backing off, to focus on finishing up school really, really well. Finals, started kind of a little earlier. Because of the online situation. So we've been a little bit hands-off this week, just checking in with some texts and things like that. But what's different is recruiting. This is a huge recruiting time for us. And so that has really shifted from, live, at tournaments, evaluations, things like that, to way more communication and evaluation of film and video and things like that, has been a little bit of a challenge, but we're making it work. And, you figure out, what the new norm is and you do your best, and we just keep reminding ourselves, Barry, everybody's in this situation, right?
Right.
And so I think that's helped us not get overwhelmed.
Men's tennis coach Rolando Vargas, you've got kind of a dual semester sport. You were busy in the fall, but you were right in the thick of it, having a great year in the spring when all of a sudden, it got cut off. What was that like for you and for your team?
I mean, it was very, very unexpected. We were actually on spring break, practicing hard. We went to the beach, did a little bit of conditioning there, and we were ready to go play Georgia Southern and everybody was really excited. We have a good rivalry against them, and we were gonna go on the road, and we were like ready to go. And in just a matter of 1 day, 2 days, everything just kind of shut down, and it was very, very, very tricky. And obviously, we were coming with a little bit of momentum. We had 3 really good wins at home the previous weekend, and I think we were, in the right situation to go into the conference matches. But I mean, obviously, the most important thing is the health of the players. So the players understood that, and the tricky thing about us too is that I have a lot of foreigners, so they were all skeptical about what was going to happen, and it all got kind of like a little bit like stressful for everyone, and then the parents and getting in touch with us and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, we got to do what's best for everyone health-wise.
I want to ask about that later on. We'll hold that question, but I wanted to get to Becky Whetstone with Student Athlete Services. They've already addressed it just a little bit, Becky, Coach Cross, Coach Lauer, about the virtual aspect of things. How has the virtual transition affected the student athletes the most?
It's definitely been a huge transition, but as Dr. Hawkins always said, we are a very big presence in the online institution setting already. So a lot of our faculty transitioned really well, which helped our students transition well. So there was some ups and downs for a couple weeks there, but today is the final day of finals, and now it's just kind of a sit and wait and see how everything pans out. But I'm really proud of our students, our coaches, our administration, all the staff, and how much communication came out of all of this and really helped. I think that it'll help long-term for the academic success of our student athletes.
It certainly is a brave new world, and that's a common theme we've been hearing from everybody. It's all new for all of us. Nobody has all of the answers. Nobody knows what to expect. Let me ask Coach Cross this, and I'll ask others as well. With the possibility of things changing across the scope, has that affected your recruiting? Are you still getting out? Are you being able to evaluate after this great recruiting class you did? And do you suspect, Coach Cross, that scheduling may be affected by all of this when we finally get back?
Yeah, there's so many unknowns right now. As far as us, the recruiting, we need to sign one more guy. So we're in communication with 4 or 5 guys right now that we think could fill that spot. It's just a matter of time before one of them decides that Troy is the right spot for them. June 15th, we can start contacting the younger kids, and we'll start doing that as well, and building those relationships with the guys that just finished their sophomore year. We're also in contact with the juniors already right now, so we're building relationships with those guys. We can't go out on the road and actually watch anybody right now. There's been talks from the NCAA that, they may move that. Like normally there was an April evaluation period, and then there were 2 weekends in June that we could go out, and then July had 2 weekends, or basically 2 like 5-day periods that we could go out. It looks like we're hopeful that maybe July will happen, but I've heard rumors that June and July will not happen, and they may move it to August and September. So there's so many unknowns. I think the one thing for coaches is we just hope the NCAA communicates and figures something out as soon as possible, because that would help us in the planning process. Not knowing when the guys can come back, that's something that we think about all the time, whether they're going to be back summer 1, summer 2, or they're not going to be allowed to come back until the fall. And so it's really hard to plan things out. It's hard to figure out with Miss Becky, what we're going to put guys in, whether they're going to be in summer school, this, that, and the other. So there's so many unknowns right now. But right now, Miss Becky's the MVP. So she's the most important person in the room. And, the one thing that has been a positive, as she said, I mean, right now looking at it, I feel as good about our guys academically as, any semester that I've been here. And our guys have been working hard, and obviously she's done an outstanding job staying in contact with them, and hopefully we'll finish up strong here.
The Coach Lauer, communication is the key with Becky and with everybody out there. Talk a little bit about that, about having to work remotely with your students and with the staff and with your staff, and not being able to access your facility. And yet again, for your team, it's a fall sport. When it does come time, and like Coach Cross said, you're hearing rumors about this and that and everything else. When it does come time, the plan is everything starts on time. How long would it take for you guys to get ready for the season?
Yeah, I think that, we're kind of looking at two or three things right now. Number one is how much longer weeks, 8 weeks, or longer, and how do we fill that gap time with quality content, to help our team grow, obviously we want our kids working out and, doing the best they can to stay in shape. But I think that there's a lot of things, we're looking at doing as college coaches to be creative, growing our team leadership and our team culture and stuff like that, so that we feel like our players are being cared for, but also that they feel like what they're pouring into, even though they're not together, is going to be helpful when we do get back together. So that's kind of one thing, kind of short term, until we get back, what are some of the positive things we can do? Right. So the other thing is that, we're talking with our players like, look, we have to kind of plan for the worst and hope for the best, and so whatever we get back is icing on the cake. So we've talked with our players like, hey, we may not see you until August. See you before that, that's icing on the cake. So it's better to kind of plan out that, like, we're not going to see you for a while. And then if we do, man, then it's special and then it's a bonus, right? And so that's kind of the mindset we're trying to get there as well, to kind of help them through this phase, And then the last part is we have to be ready to adjust. Whatever guidance comes from the NCAA, and, I think Coach Cross is right. We're all kind of waiting on the NCAA to give us some timeline guidance and some green lights on some things. And then once we know that, then we can really operate and navigate our players through that time. But one thing's for sure, this season, for fall sports, and I think for almost every sport, but definitely for fall sport, it is going to look different, going to need, in my opinion, a minimum of 4 weeks for our players to make sure that they are healthy and strong enough to take on the rigors of the season. I can't imagine what football is going to need, right? But like, what we don't want to have happen is come back, and put our student athletes in a situation where they run a huge risk of serious injury just to play, right? Like, we don't want a rush back to affect a player, with a major injury that would affect them for 2 years, instead of just having kind of a disrupted, different season, So I think we'll make some good decisions. I think the NCAA will make some good decisions about easing it in, and then us playing as much as we can. We got to be thankful for time that we do get. And so, that's how we're doing it right now.
That's Coach Josh Lauer. If you have a question for any one of the coaches, again, the Zoom group chat at the bottom of your Zoom screen, we'll be able to monitor those and get those. Our first one comes actually to Coach Vargas, and it's from Tim, a great Trojan friend of ours. And he asked this. He said it was a response to something you asked, Rolando. You spoke about a moment ago. Coach Vargas mentioned the makeup of his team. There are quite a few international students on the men's tennis team. He says, we have been wondering how our international students have been dealing with the shutdown of campus. Do most of our student athletes live off campus? And what was it like? Most of them, I suspect, Coach, are back home overseas or in their home countries, correct?
Yeah, correct. It was kind of a very unique situation. We were notified of the things that were going on. The players were actually very patient and understood what was happening. But after those matches got canceled on the weekend, then we were still like waiting like that week, you know, to see what was gonna happen, if they were gonna extend like the suspension, because at one point in time it was like May 1st, actually April 1st or something. They were like not selecting any specific date, and then all of a sudden it started to get so big, and the players at the beginning were like, oh, we're gonna stay, and then from 1 hour to the other, I started receiving messages like, hey, I'm gonna go back, because otherwise the flights are gonna be canceled and I'm not gonna be able to go back. And it was like so hectic. Obviously I have players from Spain, Italy, where the virus was in the worst stages, you know? So the parents were very concerned, but obviously I think Troy handled it very well. We gave them the answers we could give them. The players were kind of like wondering, but they understood it, and they were able to go back home, you know. And the ones that are in the States, I had a player go to Houston to see his dad, and another one went to Florida. But it all happened in a matter of like an hour, you know. It was just, I was going back and forth telling them, hey, make sure you're doing good in your online classes now. And then all of a sudden it's like, coach, somebody's gonna give me a lift to the airport. I'm gonna see if I can fly right then. So it was very, very, very strange.
I can imagine. Tim, secondary question, follow up, and I want to ask Becky Whetstone from Student Athlete Services. Can you imagine having to do your job in this current situation without all of this technology?
Absolutely not. It wouldn't be doable. You know, we use Zoom. Should have bought stock in it a long time ago. We use it all the time, every day. You know, I'm sure that especially with basketball guys are tired of getting surprise FaceTime calls from me saying, hey, how are things going? The great thing about Zoom is we can screen share, so get to actually see what they've got going on their screen. And if they can't find something on our internal resources called Canvas, then we can screen share and I show them how to get to it. So things like that have been super helpful and very convenient for my staff and I.
You know, it would be super helpful as for those people out there who don't really realize what Becky's office is and what they do. Becky, of course, you were a collegiate student athlete. You've lived that life. You've got a great staff. I know Cody is checking in, and you know, you got Hillary and Cheryl Bees and all those people. I don't want to leave anybody out. But define what your job is. A lot of people have a misconception exactly what Student Athlete Services does and what your responsibilities are.
I think a lot of people would have a different idea of what we do. We do a lot, but you know, you're right. We're all very passionate about serving our students, and I think that's the premise that we can put out there is we're servants for our students. Cody said it best earlier when he said we're kind of the bridge between our student athletes and the institution academically. Anything that they need for academic support goes through our office. A lot of people think that we just schedule classes, and although that is something that we do and takes out a lot of our time, you know, it's about serving students and tutoring, life skills. We do life skills programming through our office. You know, study hall is where we're located, just checking in on students and their well-being. So just being a kind of a mediator between them and coaches and faculty and administration and compliance, and we're just kind of a middleman, and we all love our job. We're very grateful for it, and we love serving our students.
Off the wall question here for Coach Cross. Somebody texted this one. This wasn't on group chat. They asked about this. They wanted to know, Coach Cross, your thoughts of the first 6 episodes of The Last Dance with Michael Jordan. Can you relate to what makes him tick the level he does?
Yeah, I mean, we're glued to it. So, you know, that 2 hours, we shut everything down. My boys are right there on the couch waiting, you know, soaking in every minute of it. You know, I grew up during that time, probably from like 7th grade through college was when kind of MJ was in his prime. And so every person, I mean, he was an idol for all of us. And everywhere you go, people have posters. Everybody was wearing his shoes. So I've always been, you know, the guy that says he's the greatest of all time. And to see it and relive all those memories. And what's really interesting, though, for me is like listening to Magic Johnson and Charles Barkley and those guys talk about him. Just the way about how he willed his team to win. I think that's what makes him so special and separates him. And I think that's the thing, like, for my boys that I want them to see, that aspect is just, he just had that competitiveness and that will to win. And I think that's what separates him from any other player. And you can see it, some of it is a bad thing and it led to some of the problems he had. But in terms of basketball greatness, that competitiveness and the fact that he refused to lose is what made him, in my opinion, the best of all time.
Yeah, that's what I took out of it as well. Just extraordinarily competitive. A question for Coach Lauer. Last fall, terrific year. Your club was 23-10. Great season for Troy volleyball. I wanted to point this out from last year's team and get your thoughts about this. You were 14-1 at home. That's not coincidental, right? What led into that?
As we've for the last 3 seasons, Barry, we've kind of set some things like, hey, if we do these things, we will kind of to where we want to go. These are the steps to get there, and I think that this is pretty prevalent in coaching just across the board, right? Like, you're really trying to focus on your process and the things that get you to where you want to go. So our evaluation was, this is where we're at. This is where we want to go. Okay. So in between there is everything we got to do. And one of those things was be better at home. We were kind of, I don't, right? Like, I don't know what we were the year before, but it wasn't good enough. Like, we have an advantage, great place to play. We have great hands. And so then we started talking about, like, what makes our environment, better to perform better at home. We changed a couple pregame things that we thought, that were some player influence things that were helpful for them. And then we started engaging in campus more, and look, the bottom line is that our players are 18 to 22 years old. They want to play in front of, their peers and their friends and the campus community, and the Troy community as a whole. And so we thought of some things and got outside the box, and, we're like, okay, if we want them to come, then we need to pour into those groups and those people on campus as well, And so we went out and built relationships just like we would in recruiting, but real relationships, the BCM and the CSC and the fraternities and sororities and, any camp group that we could meet. And this is who we are, who we would like from you, but you got to let us know what you need from us. So, and just as it is, it's a street, right? Like, it's easy to go out and say, like, hey, come to a match. Right. But what we tried to do was say, when you have things, we want to engage with you as well. So, for instance, ATO, right? They do their walk hard thing and stuff like that. And sure that we had space after a practice and be like, hey, these are the 3 or 4 fundraisers that we're doing to go out and raise the money that is good for Troy and good for our project and things like that. And it was easy as our players just going to eat at whatever, support night it was. We're going to go eat anyway. So why not go help the people that came out and helped us? Took ice cream sandwiches over to BCM one night after their meeting and just had fun, And so I just think building that rapport on campus was helpful, and it created an environment that our players fell in love with, and they felt like they needed to defend the honor of the Trojan community on their home floor. Right. And then you got people painting up on one side and yelling on the other side. And that creates a atmosphere that's fun to be in. And our thing is that, like, sports are supposed to be fun. We're all competitive. We all want to win. Right. At the end of the day, win or lose, we're not walking away and saying, like, man, that was really fun. Okay. Then something's wrong. All right. But we need the fans to add to that atmosphere, But so that was part of our thing. I think that's what made it special, And here's the deal, Barry. We had that student group and some of those organizations on campus, right, asking us, like, hey, man, can we set up some community service stuff? When are you guys coming back? We had a group say, hey, come over for a spaghetti dinner. We'd love to just hang out with you guys. Those are easy things.
Right.
And here's the deal. It is hard for student athletes to let down guard and really build some relationships outside of their team and athletics sometimes. But they need to do that. They need another outlet besides just the coach or their teammates and stuff like that for their own emotional and well-being. And when they have people that they can meet, you know, that are doing different things, I think it's good for them as a person, you know, and it makes what they have more valuable and they understand it better. And then they're going to play better and they're going to be better teammates and they're going to work harder. And so I think that had a lot to do. That was a long answer to a short question, but we were passionate. We were passionate about that this year, as far as engaging the campus community and letting them know we're a part of this too. It's not a one-way street.
Question for Coach Vargas, and you know you're like the rest of the coaches. You're young and energetic. I don't want this to go any other way, but you have won championships at other institutions in the NAIA. You've been around a little bit, great deal of experience, but you graduated from Troy. You've got 2 degrees, I believe, from Troy. Now that you're back and you know getting the program rolling in men's tennis at Troy University, 2-part question: how do you feel about the potential for growth with this university and with this program, and about the growth of collegiate tennis as a whole?
Yeah, first of all, I'm very honored, obviously, to be the coach in Troy. I got my degree here, my bachelor's and my master's. So, you know, super fortunate. Every day I think about it, how lucky I am. So that's great. And yeah, I mean, the team in Troy has great team cohesion. I think our potential is very high. We have a very good group. I think that's the key, you know, because with my experience, I mean, I definitely had very good players. But if you have one person that doesn't buy in what you're trying to get, then it makes things so much different. You know, that's tennis, you know. You practice with them, you travel with them. Then it may come down to you as the last player defining the series. So it's very important to have really the right culture. You know, you can have one really good player, but if you don't have the right culture, it's not going to work. So we have a very good group. I really enjoy working with them. They make my job so much fun. We have all different backgrounds. That's something that I learn a lot from being a tennis coach, is you get to meet people from all over the world, you know, and just putting them all together is just a great thing. They definitely have made me a better coach, a better person. I learn every day from them. And that's kind of what makes a difference. And the potential in Troy is so good. Like the university, academically, the facilities, the coaches, the staff, it's just something so unique. And obviously me working in other places, even when I was working in the other institution, I lived in Troy, you know, so I always was close by. The community here is so great, so supportive. I remember one time when my parents first came in like 2001, they were so impressed about the people, you know. They're like, my dad was lost somewhere in Troy, and this person took him and just drove him all the way to where I was on campus. So there's something very special about the Troy community, the university, and I think our potential is very high. We've won it before. We have good history, tradition. There's so many good ambassadors from the past that played for Troy tennis. Willie Campos back in 2001, great player. He's always getting in touch with me, very proud, and I have many other names that I want to leave out, but right. I mean, it's an honor. It's great. Our potential, like every year also, like this is my second season. Unfortunately, we were cut short, but we were making some progress. And I think the team is getting hungrier and hungrier, and they're believing every day. Last year, they were a little bit young, a lot of freshmen, a lot of newcomers. But then this year, they started to know what they could get done, you know. And I think as years come, I think they know that we're playing for getting into the finals and play for titles, and you know, it's very fun. But obviously Troy is an amazing place to me. I met my wife here. My son was born in Dothan, and you know, I'm I consider myself an Alabamian from Troy, so I'm very proud of that.
One final question for Becky Whetstone, and it kind of dovetails off what he was talking about before. The growth of your department, the resources that you have gotten, and that you utilize, staff and resources otherwise. Characterize how that has evolved for you and for your staff.
Oh, dramatically. When I first got here, it was myself as a GA and 3 full-time staff members, and now we've more than doubled that. We do have a great staff, and Mr. Bees and Cody Ash and Hillary Parkin and Kayla Dozier, and our graduate assistants graduating this summer, which we're really happy about. Brian's been really great for us. But with this new norm, if you will, we've had to utilize other resources and reach out across campus and get the other people that are willing to help and that want to be there and want to serve our students. And I'm kind of grateful that we have all this technology, as we were mentioning earlier, because now it's opened up campus for our student athletes. Now they have that bridge that, oh yeah, I met with you on Zoom while we were home, and now I can come to you in person. How great is that? So we're extending our resources, which is really great, and utilizing what our university is providing, not just athletics, but what our university is providing. And as I was mentioning earlier, it's just become kind of a bridge between us as athletics and our institution as a whole. And that's been a really wonderful process to watch unfold.
Becky Whetstone is the Assistant Athletics Director for Student Athlete Services, men's tennis coach Rolando Vargas, volleyball coach Josh Lauer. Coach Scott Cross, I asked you to do this the last time you were on the virtual Trojan Talk, and it did such a good job. I'm going to ask you to do it again. As we say goodbye from this Zoom thing, for those people out there who are, bored and tired and ready to get out and, so many questions and all that kind of stuff, give us a parting word for those people of encouragement in the Trojan Nation who are still trying to make it through what is admittedly a very difficult time.
Yeah, it's a difficult time for all of us. We're very appreciative of all the Trojan fans and all the people on this call. And, we just want to encourage you and just take it one day at a time. That's what I tell our guys, just take it one day at a time. And before it's all said and done, we'll be back and we'll be better than ever.
Men's basketball coach Scott Cross, volleyball coach Josh Lauer, men's tennis coach Rolando Vargas, Becky Whetstone from Student Athlete Services. Our virtual Trojan Talk has been brought to you by Santa Fe Cattle Company on Highway 231 in Troy and by Mama Goldberg's Deli on the Square in Troy. Thanks, everybody, for being a part of this. We'll do this every Tuesday at this same time, and we hope to get a chance to see you next time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much.